Norman Swan is the host of RN's Health Report and joins me now. Norman, welcome to the program. Donald Trump is, of course, 74, so that puts him in the COVID danger zone, doesn't it?
Yes, it does. The statistics vary according to whether you look at the infection fatality rate or the case fatality rate. Too complicated to explain them both. But if you so his chances of dying, I mean, he could become quite seriously ill. And if he does become seriously ill, it'll be in the second week. It could be that he's asymptomatic and he'll stay asymptomatic, and plenty of people do, which we hope that he does. But if, in fact, he develops symptoms, he might be fine for the first week, and then you kind of fall off the cliff on the second week. And depending on how you look at the statistics, if you're 74, just take the age now, 74 gives you a mortality rate, a chance of dying of between 5 and 12%, depending on how you calculate it. And then obesity, and he is just in the obese zone. He's just a little over a BMI of 30, according to, I think, his most recent medical that they put out. So he's just on the obese level. Obesity gives you an extra maybe 40% chance of dying. So that could be up at 15, 18%, or depending again, if you look at the lower end, 7 to 8%. So, and certainly, a high chance of being in hospital, a high chance of going to intensive care. So he could become quite ill. And again, one hopes that he doesn't. He may well be asymptomatic. And the other question, of course, on everybody's mind is, could he have infected Joe Biden at the debate, which is now just a little bit more than 48 hours ago. So it all depends on when he got in, how long he's been infectious for. Look, the chances are probably pretty low, you'd have to say. First of all, there was social distancing, but on the other side of it, it was a very vigorous debate. There were shouting, so there was going to be aerosol in the air. Mm-hmm. And one doesn't know how well ventilated that auditorium was at the Cleveland Clinic. So if it wasn't well ventilated, an hour and a half in the same environment as somebody who's got COVID-19, if they've got live virus coming out, you could indeed catch it.
Now, his doctor, Norman Swan, has tweeted saying that both Donald Trump and Melania are in isolation, but didn't put a time frame on it. It would be quite unusual, wouldn't it, if he didn't, fulfill the usual 14-day quarantine?
Well, 14-day quarantine is more for people who've come in from overseas and you don't know whether they've got the virus. If you've got the virus, the rules vary around the world. But for example, you can come out of isolation if you've been symptom-free for 10 days. Some people say 3 days. And some people will test you towards the end to see if you're negative. So 14 days is a rule of thumb, but it could actually be less than that if he tests negative on a couple of occasions or he has no symptoms at all.
And I'm just wondering for your observations on how this might affect his approach to COVID-19. Of course, in the debate with Joe Biden the other night, it was one of the sort of sharpest moments when Joe Biden was really criticising Donald Trump's sort of laissez-faire attitude, the fact that he was, proposing all of these pretty crazy ideas for treatments and preventions. As we saw with Boris Johnson, when he got COVID-19, it can really shake you and change your attitude towards this virus.
Yes, Boris Johnson was very sick. And if you look at him at the beginning of his disease, he looked terrible. And it took him a while to get back to work. So he obviously didn't quite have long COVID, but he had extended effects. It's hard to know with somebody like President Trump. I mean, if he's asymptomatic and he stays asymptomatic, for example, Senator Rex Patrick here got it and was asymptomatic throughout. I'm not suggesting that changed his view of COVID-19, but if President Trump remained asymptomatic right through, he might say, well, this is nothing. Look at me, I've just bounced back. And one hopes that he doesn't become so sick. One doesn't wish this on anybody, that to become so sick. But I suspect if he's asymptomatic, it won't change his views of COVID-19.
Yeah, well, the timing here is pretty extraordinary, just 5 weeks out until the poll. But I guess we'll just wait and see now, wait until we hear from Trump's doctor about just how severe this virus is. Norman Swan, thanks for your time.
You're welcome.